Today, we're so excited to introduce Andrew Putz, who coordinates the Secretariat of the Climate Heritage Network, hosted by the Paris-based International Council of Monuments and Sites. Andrew has dedicated the last year to building a digital community of practice called Heritage Adapts to Climate Alliance, or HACA, which is an online community of practice for anyone who wants to collaborate on bolstering the inclusion of culture and heritage in international climate adaptation policies like the GGA, and on supporting local leaders to leverage those policies for effective, equitable, and locally led adaptation actions. Today, we're so delighted to have Andrew here with us to explain HACA more in depth. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Hi, Ellie. Fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us today. And I just wanted you to kind of briefly explain what HACA is and the importance of the community of practice that we have been building in alliance with Climate Heritage Network, ECOMOS, and Insight National Geographic.
Yeah, with pleasure. So it's a timely question because this week, in mid-July, we're launching the Heritage Adapts to Climate Alliance, HACA, that you mentioned. And so for the first time, folks around the world will have the chance to get involved with this. And so I'm excited to be able to tell people about it. Maybe just to start with the problem we're trying to solve. In many parts of the world, culture and heritage are really not included in climate adaptation planning, policy, and finance. At the Preserving Legacies project, we understand that climate change is an emergency today. We're experiencing loss and damage of culture and heritage today from climate impacts. And so it's urgent that the ability to do risk assessment for heritage and culture and start to plan adaptation, it's urgent that be undertaken not just at a few lucky sites, but at thousands of sites around the world. One of the ways that we feel like we can help improve the chances of scaling up and out at heritage-based climate adaptation action is to get that work valorized in policy. We are doing it at this moment because we have an unprecedented opportunity in the form of a thing called the Global Goal on Adaptation. So what is the GGA, the Global Goal on Adaptation? It comes from the Paris Agreement, actually, from 2015. The Paris Agreement says there should be a global goal on mitigation, in other words, on holding down global temperature rise, and a global goal on adaptation. This framework is really meant to guide national governments around the world in enhancing their action on adaptation. And the reason why it's an opportunity for us is because for the first time ever, cultural heritage is a core part of that UN plan. The GGA actually says that national governments should make it a priority by 2030 to put in place adaptive strategies to protect heritage sites and cultural practices from the risk of climate impacts. What HACA is going to try to do is implement, build out, augment that international policy, and at the same time help local actors leverage this new credibility, this new focus that we have to get action in their countries and at their sites.
And with this said, given the time frame where we're at and this leverage that we have, building that community of practice and that interconnectivity and that networking on a digital platform, can you talk a little bit where that platform is going to live and how can people access that platform if they want to join HACA?
Yeah, with pleasure. So one of the first things HACA will do is try to bring together anyone that's interested in this topic, that has opinions, expertise on this topic, and synthesize together a joint submission from the cultural heritage field into this active policy process on developing indicators for measuring progress on adaptation. So how do we do that? We decided to create an online platform, and so we've put out an open call for people to join HACA. When you sign up, you get a link to invite you to join this workspace on Circle. And once you get there, you'll find a resource library about all these topics. You'll find a social media space where anyone who's interested can post and talk to each other. But importantly, you'll also find a discussion board where we are crowdsourcing ideas about these big topics, including what are the indicators to measure progress on adapting cultural heritage. And we will harvest the feedback from that people put on this discussion board into a expert submission that we will actually submit in a policy consultation to the UN.
And what do you feel is what do you see as the future of HACA?
Overall, we really want HACA to be a place where people that are interested in scaling up cultural heritage can collaborate to embed cultural heritage in not just the GGA, but other adaptation policies. And as that starts to happen, we have to make sure that those policy advances translate into help for local communities. And I mentioned this a moment ago. Help for site custodians, for advocates for local heritage places and monuments, for local communities, to then use these policy victories to leverage financial support, a seat at the table of decision making, attention for their cause. So HACA will keep going to fight these policy fights, but it will also have this dimension on dissemination and translation to make sure these policy victories become tools that help local communities do more culture-based adaptation.